My name is April LaJune, and I am a political journalist and a broadcaster. I began my political journalist career by actually starting in entertainment because I'm a musician. What happened is I was reporting on entertainment and things like that for a really long time, and I'd probably done it for like a year. And then I decided I better go to school for this because I seem to like it really a lot. So I decided to go to Longview Community College, and that's where the political portion of my journalism came into being, because when we were discussing different things in the classroom, I became more interested in political things and the way our world works. So after I had taken that course in journalism, I actually got a job later on in Colorado after attending a broadcasting journalism course. Then I went to Washington, D.C. and learned how to become an anchor under the tutelage of Cheryl Atkinson. And she was working with CBS at the time, and Herb Brubaker, who was of NBC. And that's how I learned how to anchor. So that's how I got to be where I am today. And because I don't really feel like I can work for a mainstream news affiliate because of the things that are going on and the way that truth works in the news, I decided it would be better for me to be independent. And that's how come I have my own YouTube channel. So now I'm an independent broadcaster. I've been in the church since 1971. I was baptized when I was 8 years old by my father, Jim Noland. And that was at Liberty Street in Independence, Missouri. I grew up in Independence and lived here all of my young adult life, my early years, young adult life. And I went to Truman High School, graduated from there, and then went on to Graceland College for a small period of time, eventually going to Pikes Peak Community College when I was older. My immediate family is my mother and father, Jim and Bonnie Noland, and my sister, who is Holly. Some of you might know her as Holly McLean. As far as the background of my family in the church, my mother's family is from Russia and England, where my grandfather, he's a Russian Jew. Well, he was a Russian Jew, and his family left Russia, similar to Fiddler on the Roof. They left Russia and came to the United States of America, and my grandfather was born in Chicago. That's on my mother's side. On my mother's side also, her mother was born in Liverpool, England, or at least in England, and she moved here from Liverpool, England. My grandfather and my grandmother met while they were here in the United States, and my mother grew up in Newark, New Jersey. I don't really have any background on my mother's side as far as the church is concerned, but I do have background as far as the lineage of the Jews is on my mother's side, because her father is a Russian Jew. And so that was kind of important to me in my patriarchal blessing, so I could know what is my job to be in as far as kingdom building with Zion. That has always been kind of an important thing to me on my mother's side. I think my mother's faithful today because she grew up going to church. Her mother at least made her go to church. She was Catholic. She grew up Catholic. She had a lot of questions about what God had in store for her. My father's side, as far as I can remember, my great-grandmother, her name is Grace. She was the first one in the church as far as I know. She made sure that her children went to church. My grandma Nola, who is my father's mother, made sure that he played the piano and the organ, because her goal was she wanted him to be able to play for church services. So she was really influential as far as my grandmother on my father's side and my grandma Nola, making sure that my father still had church in his life. Well, when I grew up as a kid, everybody, it seemed like, in the Independence area was either RLDS or they were Mormon or something that had to do with a restoration type church. So the people that I went to school with were in my youth group. They were the people who were in Zion's League, and I went to camp with them all the time. So it wasn't unusual for my sister and I to do something that was church related every single day of every single week when we were growing up. That was just normal life. If we weren't going to youth camps, we were going to the campus up on the Independence Square, and we were around those kind of kids all the time. Our recreation time was church stuff. When I moved away from Independence and I went to Colorado, I probably lived in Colorado 25, 30 years. The church experience is almost none because there's very few restoration branches. There's very few RLDS churches anywhere where I went. So it was kind of scattered and sporadic. So a lot of the stuff that I did was either I watched something online or I was self-studying things, reading my own Bible and that kind of thing. But, when you're not around church people all the time, sometimes you kind of forget. But one thing I've always done is I've always prayed. That helped me to be able to come back to Independence and understand that this is Zion. This is the important thing that we need to be doing in our lives, is gearing our lives towards building Zion. When I first started in political journalism and going through broadcasting and that kind of thing, I did not really think that my job would have any kind of fit with the church at all, because politics in church is kind of like something people don't want to discuss because it's not always the most pleasant. Not being very pleasant, it makes it difficult to see where you sometimes fit in with your career. I decided I was going to come back here and just figure it out when I got here. I was able to see through being an election judge that having a background in politics as well as the church and thinking about Zion, I could see that my political experience in broadcasting were really super helpful when it came to building Zion. I can help with videos. I can help with technology as far as like social media type things, creating things that go with outreach ministry. I can see how the broadcasting itself and learning how to quickly edit for the news and how to put together scripts and videos and that kind of thing on a commercial way of doing things. It's really very helpful when it comes to trying to put together ministry and technology to further the efforts of the church, not only growing the church, but helping to build Zion.